morning. I've been counting the number of times that someone's got up on stage and said, they're so excited to be here. I'm going to add to that. I'm so excited to be back in Singapore for the first time in 3 years. It's amazing to see people in person and have the opportunity to share with all of you some of the exciting things that we've been working on in our products organization. So let's jump in. For those of you that are customers and have actually used the technology, you're probably familiar with the core of Chainalysis is really this data layer that we've built, connecting what's happening on chain to people and companies in the real world, right? And that we do better than anyone else. And we've built purpose-built tools for compliance teams to protect their businesses, for law enforcement and financial regulators to be able to investigate illicit activity and ultimately prevent and stop it. But we're not stopping there. We've invested and committed to all of our customers that we will deliver actionable and unique intelligence, that we create a trusted network across both private and public sector, that we simplify the increasing complexity in the world of cryptocurrency, and that we deliver all of this in a truly enterprise-grade solution that you can build your businesses on. Now let's start with talking about data and turning data into actionable intelligence. As you may know, Chainalysis obviously collects information from all of the popular blockchains, but it's not simply collecting that transactional data. We actually operate infrastructure, hundreds of nodes across those blockchains. So we're collecting unique information that almost no one else in the world looks at. Secondly, because of the customers that we work with, as Uli mentioned in his presentation, the largest exchanges in the world are collaborating with Chainalysis to protect their customers. That network of information improves the value of the data that we have to share with everyone else. And then finally, we built the largest teams of experts who are actively operating across the internet, both the clear and the dark web, to collect data in detail that enables our customers to protect themselves. All of that information goes into an advanced data processing platform using machine learning, artificial intelligence, pattern recognition techniques, hundreds of algorithms that allow us to connect that on-chain transactional data to real-world entities, enabling all of you to do your jobs more effectively at lower cost and better serve your customers and organizations. And just to put some numbers behind this, since inception, our transaction monitoring product, KYT, has now processed in excess of $10 trillion USD, 10 trillion of transfers through that platform. We've mapped over 1 billion cryptocurrency wallet addresses to real-world entities. And when you process a transaction through KYT, over 78% of those transactions is with a known counterparty. So the visibility into the data is unmatched when you work with Chainalysis. And just to give you one final example, you may have read in the news about the Hydra darknet marketplace being taken offline by law enforcement a few months ago. Hydra, if you're not familiar, they transacted about $1 billion in illicit commerce last year alone. So incredibly large organization. When they were taken offline, they were sanctioned, and sort of their addresses closely correlated with Hydra were blocked. In that sanction announcement, there were about 100 addresses, a few more than that were specifically mentioned. In Chainalysis, we had attributed over 6.6 million addresses to Hydra. So the visibility using our tools and the capability that we provide to better protect your customers and your businesses is unmatched. And we're not stopping with investigations and compliance. So one of the products that I'm most excited about, we're going to be introducing into beta later this summer, is called Chainalysis Playbook. This takes an entirely new look at what we can do with the data set that Chainalysis produces. This is really focused on enabling all of you to grow your businesses, better understand your customers, your competitors, and what do your customers do when they're not transacting with you? Where else do they interact across the blockchain? And how can you use that information to better grow and build your business. Incredibly powerful. You'll hear more about this from us in the coming months. I also want to talk about this trust network. Jonathan touched on it. 750 customers from around the globe, the leading cryptocurrency businesses, financial institutions, and government agencies collaborating to better protect the industry as a whole. We've been working hard on making that collaboration easier. So we added a capability in our Reactor product earlier this year that allowed for community identifications to be reported directly into the Chainalysis platform and then shared across the entire customer base. So in the few months that this feature's been live, over 30% of our enabled users have actually engaged with the community feature. And we've seen reports of over 300 cases of stolen funds and scam activity. That once it's reported, that label becomes available to everyone, and we can better protect users from falling into these traps where they might lose their cryptocurrency. Now, of course, DeFi is the new horizon in cryptocurrency. Incredibly complex, and if you've read our crypto crime report, DeFi is the horizon where all the scams and frauds are really happening right now. And so we've been working hard on extending our platform to better support DeFi use cases and make sure that both protocol operators and developers building decentralized applications or advancing decentralized finance can make their users just as safe as if they're operating in centralized finance or exchanges. You might have heard sanctions evasion has become an incredibly hot topic, particularly since Russia invaded Ukraine and the global, global financial system really came together to say, hey, that's unacceptable. We're going to remove Russia from the financial system. Well, we wanted to make sure that was possible in cryptocurrency as well. So we actually introduced a free tool, both an API and an on-chain oracle, that you can validate any wallet address to check whether it's sanctioned or not. Built on the same infrastructure as all of other Chainalysis other platforms, 100% free. We launched this at the end of March, added some new features in April. We've had thousands of signups since launch, and hundreds of organizations who have now incorporated this into their platform across both DeFi ecosystem, decentralized apps. In fact, Tornado Cash is even attempting to use it. So widely adopted platform. And then we've gone and extended on top of that. So if you're building in DeFi today, the most important thing you can do is validate that the wallets you're interacting with don't have exposure to illicit activity, to sanctioned jurisdictions. And so that same API that powers our free sanction screening is now available in a full address screening. So you can understand all of the direct exposure that a particular wallet address may have. Now, the second big thing that we've been working on, Jonathan touched on this in his presentation, is that the world is now very much multi-chain. When Chainalysis launched in 2014, Bitcoin was the only chain that mattered. It was where everything was happening. But over the last few years, obviously, Ethereum and Solana and Tron have all become critical parts of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. It feels like every day a new token or protocol or chain is being launched. And we have adapted the Chainalysis portfolio to recognize that reality. In fact, our motto in the product organization is every chain, every interaction. And we're working hard to bring that into the products. If you're using Reactor, you now today have access to cross-chain investigations. Not just Bitcoin or isolated Ethereum, but fully cross-chain capability to see both assets held in wallets or in clusters and how those funds flow through complex multi-chain interactions like swaps through a DEX. We've also been working hard on our attribution coverage to make sure that we cover all of the key players in the DeFi ecosystem, whether that's liquidity pools like Uniswap and 1inch, or lending protocols like Aave and Compound, or yield aggregators like Alchemist, or other types of DeFi ecosystem participants like Chainlink or Synthetics. We now have 100% coverage across all of those, and we're constantly adding to this. So if you're thinking about DeFi and wondering what visibility can I get with my Chainalysis tooling, it's incredible. If you haven't looked in the last few months, I encourage you to go do that. We're also continuing to add new and important chains. So we just recently added Tron, which was one of the most requested new chains to be added into the portfolio, and not just the native Tron token, but also Tether on Tron. So if you're not familiar, about half of Tether's transacted volume actually occurs on the Tron ecosystem. These are now available in Reactor today. You can start an investigation, as many of our customers have, if that's an area you're interested in. But we're not stopping there. In fact, the biggest horizon, in my opinion, is smart contracts and really the programmability, composability of the ecosystem, which presents a huge amount of complexity and a really interesting challenge. And we've got something very exciting to talk about. So I want to bring my colleague, Tom Woolway, our VP of Engineering, to the stage to walk you through the biggest announcement of the day.
Yeah, my name's Tom. I am the VP of Engineering at Chainalysis, which means I get to work with the amazing R&D teams around the world. We have about 150 people in R&D located in the US, in Europe, and in Asia as well. So before I start, I'd just like to say that this is, I like to walk around on stage. This is a relatively small stage compared to the size of the screen. So if I disappear quickly from view, I've just fallen off the edge of the screen, and I'll be back in a second. So apologies for that in advance. So today we're going to do some actual investigations. I'm going to run through some demos. I'm going to show you a new tool we've been building. But first off, sort of just to set some historical context, when Chainalysis started around the time of the hack of Mt. Gox in 2014, most cryptocurrency transactions could be represented in something like Reactor, our blockchain analysis software, as a simple point-to-point, person-to-person, or entity-to-entity value transfer. So this is actually the transfer of an NFT, a World of Women Galaxy NFT, from one address on Ethereum to another. But it's fairly simple to represent as a graph like this. And so over time, DeFi has really become something that's obviously a lot more important, and people are doing some really interesting things. So OpenSea, for example, comes into the picture. And most people don't sort of send NFTs directly to each other. They would normally transact through a NFT marketplace like OpenSea. And in this graph, things start to get slightly more complex. You can see that on the left, this buyer of the NFT transfers some ETH to OpenSea, which takes its cut, takes the transaction fee, passes the rest of the ETH to the seller, who then finally passes the NFT back to the original buyer. And this is all happening in one transaction. That's the point of a smart contract. But it's still sort of relatively easy to explain in sort of this traditional graph format. And so the next step with DeFi and smart contracts, like one of the great things about them is the ability to compose multiple functions, compose complex functionality from multiple smart contracts. So in this case, Gem is a smart contract aggregator and allows us to purchase multiple NFTs at the same time. So if we want to go out and get those 2 Bored Apes or no Bored Apes, like it allows us to do that. And here you can see that things are really starting to get a little more complex. We've got some ETH flowing to Gem, which then splits it into 2 transactions, and then OpenSea takes 2 cuts, and 2 NFTs basically end up back at the buyer. So this is starting to sort of push the limits of what we can understand on a graph. And if we put it all together, all of these 3 transactions, it starts to get super complex, right? And there are a couple of problems with really understanding and telling the story from this graph. The first, it's very unclear, those 3 different transactions, when we put these all together, when did these happen? Like, what were the boundaries of those separate transactions? It's very unclear which, from this graph. Secondly, it's very hard to simplify this graph and tell the story that you just want to tell. We probably don't care that OpenSea was involved here. We just want to trace the NFTs and the payments there. But it's impossible to remove OpenSea because you end up with a sort of bunch of arrows pointing to nothingness, which isn't great. And lastly, telling a story involves time normally, and there's just no chronology, no timing on this graph. So we can't tell the story from start to finish of which asset was transferred when. And so we've been working hard on a new tool that allows you to tell the story and also investigate investigate smart contract transactions in a new way. And we call that storyline, literally because it helps you tell that story. So I'm going to take you through a couple of examples of those same transactions that we just saw in storyline, and then we're going to run through a real case, and I'll show you how easy it is to investigate that case and then visualize the results and tell that story. So first off, that simple point-to-point NFT transfer in storyline. This is what it looks like. So you can see that in storyline we represent transactions as the rows and accounts or groups of accounts as columns. So in this case, an NFT transfer, you can see that based on the negative sign on the left, that person is losing or giving the NFT, and the positive sign on the right, the person is gaining the NFT. Sale and purchase. In storyline, we'd like to allow you to just focus on the details that really matter to your investigation or your story. So you can see that, remember whether OpenSea was involved. In this case, we've just focused on the fact that this is a sale. So from the point of view of this account, they have gained some ETH, and they've lost an NFT, i.e. they sold an NFT in exchange for ETH. Lastly, the aggregated purchase. It's not that much more complex in storyline because, again, we're just concentrating on the details that matter. We don't care about Gem doing the aggregation. We don't care about OpenSea. What we care about is that this user lost some ETH, they paid some ETH, and they gained their 2 NFTs, all in that same transaction. But if we want to add in those other details from the other side of this NFT sale and purchase, we can do that. And so you can tell the story from other perspectives as well, but that's really up to you of what you want to add into the story. And last but not least, if we want to add in OpenSea and see the story from their perspective, great, we can do that as well. They take the cut of ETH, as we said, like that's their job from before. So let's look at this in action. This is an example that starts on Twitter and Discord, as like a lot of crypto stories nowadays do. And this user has been tricked into displaying their QR code from their MetaMask wallet on a video call. Someone snapped a picture of the QR code and then proceeded to transfer some NFTs out of their wallet. And they've lost a pretty significant amount of value in Ethereum or in these NFTs. And later on in this Twitter thread, the user goes on to sort of list a couple of addresses that we can start to look at and start to investigate. So in storyline, we can grab the hash of the transaction, search for it in storyline. We're searching across a ton of different chains at the box. We can find the transaction and add it to our story. And straight away, you can see that we've identified it's an NFT transfer, no more sort of generic transfer of value. You can see that we've identified what time it started at. You can also see that, again, the person on the left is losing the NFT and the person on the right is gaining the NFT. So from that, we can probably assume that the person on the left is our victim and the person on the right is our suspect. So we can start to build up these more stories and add these little details that help us really clearly see what's going on. So, okay, we've got this initial starting of the story. What do we want to do? We want to follow the NFT and see where it ends up. So Storyline makes it really easy for you to do this. You can just search for the outgoing transactions from this wallet and see what comes up next. And we can see there's one transaction. We can add this to the graph. And what we can see is, remember that OpenSea sale before, it looks very similar to this, right? So you can see that the suspect is selling the NFT on OpenSea. They're selling the NFT. They're gaining some wrapped ETH in exchange. And again, Storyline has pulled this out. It's told you that it's a sale on a marketplace. And it's also, you can see the timeline. Obviously, the sale happened after the NFT was stolen, so we're beginning to build up this chronology. And so if you want to know if you want to know more details, you can hover over, find that this happened on OpenSea, find some more info. But again, that's not important for us to tell the story, so we can leave it there. So let's keep on following that wrapped ETH. Do the same thing again. Look for the next transactions going from the wallet. Let's choose one. and see what happens to that wrapped ETH. And so we can see that it actually gets swapped for DAI, a stablecoin, and this is a fairly common pattern we see in this sort of hack. So, and again, we've pulled out that it's using it's a swap using an aggregator. We've also colored it slightly differently as well to indicate it's a fairly simple smart contract transaction rather than a more complex multi-party transaction. And then we can keep following this money to see where it goes, like where does the DAI end up next. And you can see that it was transferred to another account. So we've got the idea now, we can keep following this. It's gone to another intermediate account, follow the money again, let's add one of these transactions, and we find that it ends up in an exchange. And at this point, hopefully the exchange has a KYC policy, and you can go talk to that exchange and find out who now essentially sort of has those funds, hopefully freeze those funds and help get that money back to the original owner. The other thing we can look at is if we see the amount of DAI that's flowing to the exchange, it's actually significantly more than was sold from this one NFT. So with Storyline, we can start working backwards and build up the story to see where that additional money came from. And again, we're trying to make it very easy for you to point and click and complete this investigation. So you can see that the extra DAI came from another address. So let's do this, you get the idea now. We can keep following this money, follow the previous transactions. So where did this DAI come from? Okay, so the DAI came from a swap with wrapped ETH. This is starting to look a little bit familiar maybe. And that wrapped ETH came from an NFT sale. And so where did that NFT sale come from, or where did that NFT come from? If we add this to the graph, we find that that's an NFT transfer from that same user. So this person is taking the same sort of MO in all of these cases. They're stealing the NFT, they're swapping it, they're selling it on OpenSea for wrapped ETH, they're exchanging the wrapped ETH for DAI, they're transferring to an intermediate wallet, just one hop, and then out into an exchange. And if you go through, you can actually see that they followed exactly the same MO for every single one of these. We're not going to do that today, but you can, and the demo booth is outside, so encourage you to try this for yourself. And so we've been able to tell the story sort of from front to back. We know that at this point that this other account is probably a second suspect or the same suspect working in cahoots, so we can label that as well. So hopefully this has been a very quick demo and a very quick explanation of Storyline, but we really think this product is going to help unlock a lot of the complexity of smart contracts, help make investigation a lot easier for you, and also really importantly help you tell that story of not just investigations, but also just generally what's happening out there in smart contracts. So there's a demo booth outside. I encourage you to go and talk to some of our team about some of the other cases that we can really easily explain through Storyline. And we're working with some very early customers now. We'll be looking to roll this out in the coming months. So I'll be back a little bit later to talk a bit more about the other solutions we're bringing to investigations. But in the meantime, thank you very much